concern and wants to wait a minute, but once they do pull those boats, the referee will give them the signal, and off they'll go, starting to accelerate down their 2,000-meter race to the finish line. And they're off in the second heat. A nice start, very even right across here in the very first few meters of the varsity 8 heat number 2. As expected, Syracuse with just a bit of an advantage, being the number 2 seed. You would expect that to happen, but on any given day, these boats can move back and forth, so we'll see how this race unfolds.
Well, and kind of the nerve-wracking part, but also comforting part in racing is that you all start exactly the same in terms of even. So it's anyone's shot, it's anyone's race. Sitting at the start, that is part of the nerves. And getting into your stride, you just want to keep going and keep making sure that you are accelerating that boat. With rowers, it's pushing the boat backwards to go forward, which is a little unusual for many other sports. Usually you can see where you're going and see kind of the progress you're making, but that's where a coxswain comes in. And these coxswains are very experienced. Some of them in the varsity 8 have been in the varsity 8 for 3-4 years. So they know how to push the crews, they know what to say, especially because every year, every season, it will be a different crew, and you need to adjust and make sure that you are getting the most out of your crew. So
Old Duke is making a little bit of an adjustment here. They are ahead of the number 2 seed Syracuse in the first 500 right now by about half a boat length. Syracuse not out of it yet. A very even race with Miami and Louisville right there with them, just slightly off the pace. But Duke really pouring it on here in the heat number 2 of the varsity 8. The ACC Rowing Championship, Lake Hartwell and Clemson, South Carolina. Beautiful conditions, a little bit of a cool start to the morning, but things have warmed up nicely, and just a beautiful view of these boats coming down the course right now. But Duke out ahead, half a boat length over the boat from Syracuse, with neck and neck Louisville and Miami finding it out in lanes 2 and 3. Again, just 3 of these boats, 3 of these 4 boats will be going to the championship final. The 4th boat will be going to the petite final tomorrow morning, and you can watch that live here on the ACC network as well.
And Mark, there's a lot of strategy that goes into the seatings of this boat in terms of where you put certain athletes, bow to stern, who fits where, what dynamic, and pairs, as you can see, because you do have one blade per person. So the synchronization among these 8 athletes, plus the coaching of the coxswain, is critical to really get the most and maximize the speed out of each boat. In this Duke boat, we have the stroke. The 7 seats is actually a defending champion in the V4 from 2019 ACCs. So good experience there for sure. And you know, on the varsity 8, that is what most of the coaches will put together. You know, your more experienced, as well as your top 8 rowers and your top coxswain athlete.
And by the way, when we talk about a 7-seat or 3rd seat, 3-seat, it's the order which the rowers cross the finish line. So the 1 seat will be the rower in the bow, and the 8th seat will be the one that is closest to the coxswain in the back of the boat. Again, in the order of finish as they cross the finish line. Look at Duke pouring it on, but Syracuse sticking right with them. Just 2 seconds separating them. A little room to make up in the second half of the race for Syracuse to try to hold on and see if they can overcome Duke. Louisville, in the meantime, in 3rd, but they are neck and neck with that boat from Miami as well. So it is, I'd almost call it close to a dead heat there in 3rd, wouldn't you say, Amanda?
Yes, I do agree, Mark. It looks like that battle for 3rd is going to be quite exciting. Right now, it looks bow ball to bow ball. They're going back and forth. And sometimes a strategy could be calling the sprint earlier. However, typically it doesn't happen until the last 500. You know, and this is, again, where the coxswains come into play. What calls can I make to motivate my crew to make them faster and get a seat, gain a seat. And in doing so, it can be very empowering for the racers to get that kind of view.
500 meters to go, and Syracuse beginning to pour it on, beginning to catch up with Duke. And that third 500, a very important stretch of the race as the lactic acid begins to build up in your muscles and it begins to really hurt. You begin to clear it again when you get closer to the finish line, but going through that third 500, it is very difficult sometimes for the rowers. But here, Syracuse beginning to pour it on, trying to catch up with Duke, but Duke's still in first place. It appears that Miami is ahead of Louisville now in the third place and that ticket to the championship final.
Whew, and I wouldn't be honest if I wasn't admitting that I feel some of that lactic acid even sitting here watching these races, and these varsity eights really test their speed and push each other to some limits today is just thrilling for me to see, and I can feel it. I can feel the energy, Mark.
Look at it. Syracuse has cut Duke's lead in half in just the third 500 meters, and they are coming up right now. It is Syracuse pouring it on as Duke is trying to hold them off and fend them off. Meantime, Miami still in third, Louisville in fourth. But coming down to the line, Syracuse with a big push as they enter those red buoys in the final stretch of this 2,000-meter race.
It looks like Syracuse is gaining a couple seats here, and this is where the coxswain is certainly telling them, we're taking a seat. Duke's coxswain is certainly sensing this, but she has to do the best that she can to make sure that her crew does not lose their rhythm and is making sure they're zoned in on what they're doing.
Pouring it on, coming down to the finish in the heat number 2 of the varsity 8. It is Duke crossing the finish line just ahead of Syracuse. Those two going to the championship final tomorrow. Here comes that boat from Miami coming up strong just ahead of the boat from Louisville. Miami going to the championship final as well. Louisville to the petite tomorrow.
And the Louisville 8 actually has